Behind the Shades.
I used to party, like how you're describing it. I wasn't really a drinker, but I would party. And I remember having an extra pair of clothes in my trunk, right? It was to the point where I was like, okay, I've been out so late that do I go home? So I used to going to work. Thank God I don't work at this place anymore because they're probably going to be like, oh my God, Train, you did that. And I would shower there, have my clothes in the car, in the trunk, because you feel like you're invincible. You feel like Superman. You feel like like Wonder Woman, right? You just feel like nothing can stop you. No one can tell you anything in your life. But then you get something, your stomach bothers you. You falling asleep. You need your power naps. And for those watching, let me tell you something. I love my naps. Even though I'm not in my 50s or 60s, I love my power naps. So when you figured that out and you made that change, as you look back, Jennifer, are you surprised at some of the things that you did? And maybe you're kind of happy it wasn't worse for you as you got older?
Yes, that's a great question. At the time, I did what you shouldn't do. Everything the doctor said, you got to stop doing this or change this. I decided to do that even more because the rebellious side of me was thinking, no, I'm unstoppable. This isn't going to take me down. And as you can imagine, I realized quite quickly that this was not going to fix my mess that I was in. And so things didn't get better, they got worse. And actually to the point where I was at risk for having my colon removed because my doctor found precancerous cells. And he had never seen a case like this in someone so young, and he was quite concerned. And that was a huge turning point. That's when I started to take a new direction. I started with my eating habits, and then I started to prioritize rest. I started working out. I started running. I started figuring out all the things I needed to bit by bit. And then eventually it led me to remission. It didn't happen overnight, but it was really fun to go down this road that I had never been down. My sister was always active growing up, and same with my younger brother. And yet I never really had my thing. I just did whatever I want. I didn't care about taking care of my body or being active. And so it was just so amazing to take this new direction where I was able to discover that I really love to lift weights. This is so much fun and it's empowering. And especially because I had dropped 20 pounds within a matter of weeks and felt so weak. This was my way of rebuilding resiliency in myself physically, but also mentally and emotionally as well.
So you mentioned that it was Crohn's disease is what you ended up with. For those who don't know, what are some of the impacts or maybe the characteristics of having that or life with Crohn's disease?
So mornings aren't fun. I would wake up and I would usually have to have about 8 to 10 bowel movements per day before even starting the day. So my schedule was always around this where I would wake up and not want to do anything because I knew I would need the washroom for so long and I wouldn't want to go out. I wouldn't want to be seen. I'd always be thinking, oh, is there going to be a washroom nearby? And so it did really impact me because then I would be at home for most of my morning and I would not really have energy because you're losing so much out of you. So you feel drained and you don't have that zest for life because you're thinking of all how bad you feel and how poor your whole entire body feels. At one point, I couldn't swallow. Crohn's disease it can run from your colon all the way up to your esophagus. So at one point, there must have been inflammation in my esophagus because I couldn't even swallow properly. So I couldn't eat anything. And it's also very frustrating as you don't know what foods you can eat and what foods are going to make you miserable. And there's a lot more information out there now. But during this time, I remember Googling and getting a book, and it would always say something along the lines as, we don't know what you can eat, and we don't really know where you can even really start, but here's a list of foods to avoid. And it had anything you could think of. And you're like, what am I going to eat then? If all the foods are here, what am I supposed to do with this? So that was a very frustrating component of it for sure, is not knowing what to eat and fearing what would happen after you ate whatever it was that you were attempting and trying to figure out, is this good or not good for me? So that was very frustrating.
Did it feel like you were kind of being isolated from what many people would call a normal life at that point?
Definitely, yes. No one understood what I was going through. So I felt completely isolated. No one really understands. You feel so embarrassed. Now I'm able to share this information and not really care. But during the time, you don't want to share this information with people. And you're thinking all the worst case scenario of, oh, how will I get a job that starts in the morning if I'm always dealing with this? So I definitely felt all alone in this whole process for sure.